Welcome to another garden vlog. Well, we have a nice windy morning here. It feels almost like, when a hurricane's coming, maybe 12, 16 hours before it hits, you get all this wind and this, I know we had some kind of storm that came through yesterday or so, and they said Florida could get possibly 7 inches of rain. And then, we look at all the flooding in Texas. There was another state around in the west, I think, that had some major flooding, and then like New York got some major flooding. So the one good thing I say about Florida, especially in the swamplands, is we're more equipped to handle this rain. It'll flood out. I've seen rain 2 foot, maybe 30 inches or more, which sucked. But it wasn't generally devastating. On a previous video, I don't know if it was last video or one before that, we talked about this Baldwin pear. Do we give it to somebody or do we try to graft it? But a few videos back, further back, we also talked about the potential to try to constrict the root system in the ground to make them bloom and produce faster. Is that a thing? Should we experiment with something like that? You know what? I threw both ideas out there. Maybe we should try to graft, maybe on one of these little limbs here or something. One of the kefir pears, because I'm having to cut it back majorly anyway because it broke. And if that graft takes, then we'll donate it. We'll give it to somebody. If it doesn't take, maybe we will do that constriction, that root hugging method that we talked about. Digging a big hole, putting some concrete blocks around it, but not putting them in a way where it's going to girdle the trunk and root system. Just give it a little bit of a hug. Make it a little bit of not a super tight squeeze. And in my reasoning for talking about that was because my original Baldwin pear was like 8 years in the ground before it ever flowered. And it was probably three years after that before we got a decent amount of pears. It may have been, 1, 2, 3 pears first year, 8, 10 next year, then, 50 or more on year 3. And despite, the cat likes to rub against the tree, despite it taking that long in our ground, whether it's going into a root or growing mode or whatever, because of whatever, searching for water, nutrients, just wanting to grow tall, these things still flower in the pot. They flower in the pot. You could probably have them in a pot for years and they'd probably flower each year. Put them in the ground and they stop flowering. Or they might flower 1 year and then they stop for 7 or something. I'm told that's not normal in, most of the Florida soils, but our swamp muck soil, that's what seems to happen. That's how it seems to happen. Got a little cutting from that kefir pear. Well, that first piece broke when I tried to cut it. It was kind of too woody and stiff, and when I actually, I had to use enough pressure to cut it with the razor, the other part snapped. So instead of doing like a cleft or a whip and tongue, we basically did a side veneer graft where we still got the original here just in case this guy doesn't take. We used paraffin, to wrap most of it, and then went in that little crease there to try to prevent rain and water from getting in there. And then we tied it and wrapped it at where the graft union, where the little lip is here. Here are a few of these kefir pears that I've not really found a good use for. They say, they're good for canning, possibly pies, I don't know. We're hoping that we can convince someone to make a pie. We gave them 14 or 16 pounds of pears and said, please make us a pie. I wish I had time to make it myself right now, but too busy. That's what they kind of look like when we cut them open. Very hard pears though. hard, crunchy, a little tiny bit watery, not like the Chinese pears that just squirt that juice all in your mouth when you crunch down on them. But, you know, they have a little bit of that sort of hard pear, like pineapple pear flavor or something like that. But it's so not intense, it's so bland. And the kids tried them, and they will not eat a full pear. They'll take a bite and they say, I don't like it, and throw it on the ground. But maybe if this guy takes, it'll be a pollinator for that Baldwin for somebody. And if it doesn't, well, we'll probably just plant it in the ground, because we don't want to give somebody a pear that's not going to get pollinated. Well, it's been about 2 days later as far as when we shook this pear tree. Not 2 days after we started this vlog. We're still on the same day. Looks like it's already grown a little bit more, that pear up there, which always seems like it's black almost, like we're filming in a shadow here. But we shook it pretty vigorously and it still did not drop. Here's the other one. It may be just slightly smaller, but yeah, it's probably just a ½ inch smaller. Wonder if we could probably can't shake it down either. Well, you know, it looks like another one of our mulberries. Graft there goes into the mulberry ICU with the sick, dead, or dying mulberries. This is very sad. Dude, it's been several days since I've filmed any on this garden vlog. And as soon as I walked to the back, my kid called me. I'm flooding the sink, the kitchen sink. Something's stopping the sink up. I'm like, did you cut it off? Did you cut the water off? No, I didn't. So I was freaking out thinking that they were just flooding, you know, the floor constantly and continually versus turning the water off. So I had to come all the way back, and I guess they didn't flood the floor. Somebody did turn the sink water off, thankfully, and most of the water drained. There was just a little piece of paper, you know. I don't know if it was me or the kids or somebody else, you know, threw something in the drain that kind of just clogged it a little bit. But luckily things are okay. But the main reason we haven't really filmed lately is it's hot as heck outside. You know, we went from, you know, rain all the time to, if we get 2 days of sun and very little rain or whatever, all the plants are not happy. I don't want to be out here in the heat. So, and there just hasn't been any updates to give you guys. You know, I want to be able to provide something new or an update on something. See, this mountain cherry guava is definitely putting on a lot of green growth. You see that kind of waxy looking leaves and stuff. That's all new green growth here. A little bit droopy because it's like wanting rain. So I had to water a few things here that are dry. But I'm just splashing some rainwater on a few things. Everything is just, or a lot of things are just very, very stressed out. And this bell fig or whatever, I highly doubt it's going to recuperate. No sign of life down there. Might have put it in way too harsh of a sunlight here. It is blistering hot. So maybe I should have put it in a pot in the shade or something to see if we could get it to recover. It's probably too late if it doesn't just come up from the roots. I think a lot of these avocados and some, if not a big amount of those jaboticabas are really going to have to muster up some strength to get through this summer. So again, I've said this a few times in this garden vlog, your biggest enemy of avocados isn't the winter. Can they survive to the winter? Can they survive bacterial root rot? Can they survive the intense summer before they, you know, how many seasons before they get used to that blistering sun and all the fungal issues? And there is also a disease that I think wipes these guys out here too. You may hear about, oh, you know, where's this tree that I remember that was 20, 30, 40 years old, and then, hey, this disease got it, and it took it out. So, kind of like pear trees that have boring insects that kill them, and a few other trees probably. You probably need to have backups and plant more than one, more than two. You know, if you need two for good pollination, and you have the room, you might want to plant 5 or 10 pear trees, avocados, whatever it is. They went out back in that back forested area to check on the pears, but I went twice and I just got too hot. I'll check on them tomorrow maybe. It is just, I'm sweating. You know, 4 weeks ago, I sweated like this when I was digging in the dirt for a minute or 2 or 5 minutes, doing the other videos, planting those pears and different stuff. But now I am out of breath and sweating like crazy without doing anything but just stopping, looking, and walking a little bit. And you can see here, these impatiens are really droopy, even the Gerber daisy. And for this garden vlog, this is episode 2 of the Battle of the Wheat Beers. Last time, Hoegaarden, if that's how you pronounce it, which is a Belgian white beer, unfiltered, won against Samuel Adams Summer Ale, also a citrus wheat beer. And now, Blue Moon Belgian White, Belgian style wheat ale. Reading on a forum, a week or 2 back, where somebody said, "Ooh, like Hoegaarden is like a rip-off of Blue Moon and Shock Top." Now, I haven't tried Shock Top yet, but the fact is, Hoegaarden is what started the comeback. You know, it fell out of favor, these Belgian style wheat beers in the early 1900s, if I'm getting my history correct. And people stopped making them, and then, you know, this guy here, somebody did some research, talked to people that were still alive, I guess, found out sort of how they were made, and they started producing them again, and it came back into favor, and then people started copying or maybe trying to improve. So Hoegaarden tastes like beer, but there is that unfiltered aspect. But there's also another factor. There is something, you take a sip in 2-3 seconds, 4 or 5 seconds maybe at max, you taste something that gives you a little bit different flavor. I don't know if it's the citrus or the unfiltered aspects or the maximum, big quantity of wheat they're using to brew this beer. And this is actually brewed, and then it is like sort of brewed again in the bottle to give it more carbonation, kind of like a champagne. Blue Moon, I don't see any kind of yeast or any settlings at the bottom, so I'm assuming this guy's filtered versus unfiltered. But let's pop the cap off and let's give it a taste. First thing I notice is it seems on that first sip to have more carbonation. There is a subtle sweetness to it. It seems to have some of that, whatever that Hoegaarden had, that kind of gave us a different taste, but it seems like it's milder and it's more blended into the actual flavor of the beer itself. So you're not going to get a super big surprise hit, whether you like that after flavor or you don't. It seems to be, to me, a little bit more creamy. This guy is brewed with Valencia orange peel, and excuse me, because it is so carbonated, it definitely makes you burp. 5.4% alcohol. So the Hoegaarden is 4.9%, and it's only 11.2 ounce bottle, whereas this other guy is a full 12-ounce bottle. This guy in the freezer for 15 or 20 minutes before you drink it, and you'll have a really smooth experience, from the first sip to the last. It's hard to judge what's better or worse, because it's, opinion and what your palate says and your stomach says. There is some level of sweetness that kind of sets on my tongue after I drink this, and on the back of my throat. I don't know if I've ever had that with another beer. A few closing thoughts. It's been a few more days. What do I think about this? I think if you are into like the bush and you're looking for something maybe just a tad sweeter, maybe a tad more higher quality. Now, it's been so long since I've drank a Michelob, so I can't really compare. A lot of people used to love those Michelob six-packs and all, but you may not like this if you like that Hoegaarden, because there is that distinct aftertaste that is very mild in this one. They blend this in, they make it milder. So if you like that distinct taste, and that may be from the being unfiltered. This seems to be filtered. There's no settlings or anything at the bottom here. So I need to try Shock Top first, maybe, or an unfiltered beer, and see if it has that same little aftertaste you get after 3, 4, 10 seconds or whatever. And this seems to be a little creamier, like I said, but I think that's it. We are raining today. It's hot. Our air conditioner went out, so I'm trying to temporarily put up a window AC until the AC techs can come out, because they said we're busy for at least 2 days. Probably not going to get to half of my clients because we're in a heat wave on like our 3rd or 4th day now, and it is dangerously hot. Luckily, the rain is going to keep the temperature down a little bit. Oh, fun times, right? And if you've been keeping up with our tequila journey, season 1, season 2, season 2 has moved really slow, not consistently, getting those episodes out. I think we're going to do a shorter season. I think we're going to strive for 3 more episodes for the season, maybe more. But I think 3 is a good minimum number to try to get through the season, because we have other journeys. Now we're on our wheat beer journey, and I think we're going to try to do maybe a Mexican lager journey, and maybe, just maybe, Natalie and I, or Natalie we're considering doing a bourbon and rum journey. So that takes a lot of time, a lot of money, and yep, that's all there is to say. Take care, guys.